Okay, we're going to practice using equations by working with some word problems and to remind you about what certain words in the English language mean mathematically. So let's work through some of these. The first one says the product of 7 and a number. Okay, anytime you see the word product in math, product means to multiply. So we're going to multiply 7 and some number. Now, for the sake of these problems, anytime we're talking about some number, that's going to be our variable. We're not sure what the number is. So it says the product of 7 and a number. So there we go. The product of 7 times some number. And then that product is increased by 3. So to increase something by 3, we're going to add 3 more to it. And then it says is equal to. So you start noticing that what we're doing is the same way as translating any language. We're taking each value, we're taking each word, and we're translating it into a new mathematical language. Anytime you see is equal to, that's an equal sign. Twice the number subtracted from 39. So twice the number, that's going to be 2x, but we've got to subtract that from 39. So we got to do 39 minus 2x. 2x subtracted from 39, and then we're simply solving it. Okay, so that's our equation from our information. Now let's actually go through the process of solving it. To move minus 2x to the left side, we're going to add 2x. If we're going to move our x's to the left, we're going to move our numbers to the right. To move plus 9 or plus 3, we're going to do minus 3. We now have 9 x's. Bring down the equal sign. 39 minus 3 is a 36. So dividing by 9, x would have to be 4. And you can plug that back in and you can check that. Number 2, 5 less than twice a number. Okay, now here's where people have issues. 5 less than. If I ask you what is 5 less than 7, you would probably get it right. 5 less than 7 would be 2. And then if I ask you, how did you do that? 5 less than 7 would be 7 minus 5. So you've got to be careful with that less than. Less than kind of flips it around. 5 less than 7 writes the 7 first and the 5 second. So you've got to be careful with the order. 5 less than twice a number. Again, we did twice a number on the last one. Twice a number would be twice x. 5 less than that would be 2x minus 5. Is equal to, equal sign, 1/2 the difference. When you're doing half of a sum or half of a difference, make sure that you put the difference in parentheses because it's not just 1/2 of one thing, it's 1/2 of the whole difference. The difference of 3 times a number, or 3 times the number, and 13. Let me read that right side again. 1/2 the difference, so that's 1/2 times parentheses, difference means to subtract, 1/2 the difference of 3 times the number, and 13. And you're going to do that in the order that it tells you in that case. So 3 times the number and 13 is difference. Step number 1, let's go ahead and remove parentheses. Now I showed you a trick. On that last one, if you would like to, you can distribute this 1/2. That's perfectly fine. Another way of getting rid of that 1/2, since you have multiplication, you could actually go to the other side. And since it's being multiplied, you could divide by 1/2. Division by 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So if you would want that to take that route, you actually would not have to deal with any fractions because you can just multiply this by 2 and multiply this by 2, and you're dealing with no fraction. So it's up to you. Either way is going to give you the same answer. I'm going to work it with distributed. 1/2 times 3 would be 3/2 x. 1/2 times a negative 13 would be negative 13/2. And you can see the difficulty here. It's going to be a little bit uglier. To combine my like terms, I got to move my minus 3/2 x over. I'm going to move my minus 5 over by doing plus 5. So you have 2 over 1 up here minus 3 over 2. You're going to need a common denominator. Let me change colors here. My common denominator is going to be a 2, so I'm going to multiply the bottom by 2, and I'm going to multiply the top by 2. I now have 4/2 minus 3/2, which is 1/2. On the right side, I also need a common denominator. I have 5 over 1. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2, gives me a 10 over 2. Negative 13 over 2 plus 10 over 2 would be negative 3 over 2. The last step, to get x by itself, we're going to divide by 1/2. Dividing by 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. This works out nice and neat. Negative times a positive is a negative. The 2's will actually cancel and leaves you with a negative 3. Now, I do want to work that problem again just to show you how much easier it would have been in this first step. Since the whole parentheses, the whole side has been multiplied by 1/2, mark it out and divide the other side by 1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2. And look, you get 4x minus 10 when you multiply by 2 equals 3x minus 13. And this will make you sick how much faster this is, because look, 3x is now minus 3x, minus 10 is now plus 10. 4x minus 3x gives you 1x, and a negative 3 and a 10, or negative 13 and 10 gives you a negative 3. Okay, number 3. One number is 9 more than twice another number. One number, so there's two different numbers defined here. The second line says the sum of the two numbers is 129. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let x equal first number. Okay, here's where the tricky part is. Since there's a second number, there's two different ways we can do this. We could let y be our second number. However, there's an issue there. Then you have two different variables, and you're going to have to solve it with what's called systems. We don't want to go there if we don't have to. So what we're going to do for the second number is we're going to go back and we're going to find the simplest way that the second number is defined. The sum of the two numbers is 129. So if x is the first number, we know that the two numbers add up to 129. So the second number, let's think about that. Since the first one's x, the two add up to 129. The second one could be 129 minus whatever the first one is. Now, what we've done is we've defined both numbers, the first number and the second number, in terms of a single variable, not an x and a y, but just an x. Now, let's read the first sentence again. Okay, we use that to the simplest sentence to define the second number. Now, one number, and we'll let it be maybe the first one. One number is, the first number is 9 more than twice the other number. So twice the other number, 9 more than that. One number, which we'll let be our first number, is 9 more than twice the other number. Now, to figure out what the two numbers are, we simply solve the equation. Distributive property comes first. 2 times 129 is 258. Minus 2 times x is 2x plus 9. Combine any like terms that you have. I have like terms on this side, so I now have x equals 267 minus 2x. To move minus 2x over here with these x's, we're going to add. That gives me 3x is 267. Divide by 3 to get rid of that, and you get x is 89. Now let's go back and remind you what x is. X is the first number, and that first number must be 89 because x is 89. The second number is 129 minus the 89. 129 minus 89 would be 40. So your two numbers are 89 and 40, and you can go back and you can check that. Do they have a sum of 129? Is the twice the one number equal to plus 9 more equal to the other one? And it does check out. Number 4. Kara's golf score was 1 less than 3/4 of Greg's score. The sum of their scores is 153. So we have the same thing here. We have two different unknowns. We have Kara's score and Greg's score. Two different unknowns. The sum of their scores is 153, and that's very simple to define one in terms of the other. Again, because if they add up to 153, if we have one of the scores, we can subtract it from 153, and we have the other score. So we'll say Kara's score. We're going to let Kara's score equal x. Greg's score, and again, there's two different ways to work this. You could let it be y, and then you could set up a system. We don't want to do that quite yet. Greg's score, since there's sum, the sum of the two is 153. We know that we can take 153 and subtract Kara's score from it, and that would give us Greg's score. So there's our two variables, or two scores. Okay, we know that Kara's golf score, let's read the first sentence again, because that's going to give us our equation. Kara's golf score, which is x, is 1 less than 3/4 of Greg's score. 3/4 of Greg's score 1 less than that would be 3/4 of that minus 1, would be 1 less than 3/4 of Greg's score. There's your equation. So you have your unknowns. You have an equation. Let's work to solve the equation. So we got two options here. You can move the minus 1 over there with the x, and then since 3/4 has been multiplied by all of it, you could divide by 3/4, or you can just do what you normally do and let's just distribute. So x is equal to 3/4 times 153. Now that's going to be a pretty ugly fraction, I believe. Let's see. 3/4 times 153 over 1. There's no cross canceling that'll be done, so 3 times 153 will be 459 fourths, minus 3/4 times x will be 3/4 x, minus 1. Let's move our 3/4 x over here by adding 3/4 x. Well, I actually should have combined my like terms there first. 459 fourths minus 1. Let's go ahead and subtract that. You got 459 fourths minus 1 over 1. You need a common denominator, so multiply bottom and top by 4. That's going to be 455 fourths. So 455 fourths is what you get when you combine like terms. Now you would move your minus 3/4 over by adding 3/4. This is 1 over 1 x, so multiply top and bottom by 4 to get your common denominator, and you get 7/4 x. So you now have 7/4 x equals 455 fourths. To get rid of the 7/4, we're going to multiply the other side by 4/7. The 4's cross cancel. And I believe 455 over 7 would also cross cancel. They'll both divide by 7. 7 into 7 will go once. 7 into 455 will go 65 times. So multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms, gives you 65 over 1, or 65. So x is 65. So now let's go back up here. So x right here would be 65. That's your 1. That's Kara's score. 153 minus x would be 153 minus 65, which gives you 88 would be the other score. So make sure you solve what they said. Find Kara's golf score, so your actual answer would be 65 there. Number 5. The length of a rectangle is 1 more than 4 times the width. The perimeter of the rectangle is 62. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So a few different ways that we can work this. However, when we're defining length and width, okay, width, that's our two unknowns. Our first unknown is width. Our second unknown is length. And we've got to figure out some way to define these. And there's a couple of ways of doing this, but again, the easiest way is always use the simplest sentence to define your variables. Here's going to be the simplest. The perimeter of a rectangle is 62. Now, let me show you the shortcut for this one. If the perimeter, the distance around this is 62. Well, how do you find the perimeter? You take the width, the length, and the length, and there's actually 2 lengths and 2 widths that add up to that 62. It's the distance all the way around it. What I would rather you do is, take half of that perimeter. And half of that perimeter, which would be 31, would be the distance from here to here. And then another 31 from here to here. So what we could say is, I know that the length plus the width is 31. That's what the perimeter tells me. 2 lengths and 2 widths would be 62, so therefore length plus width is 31. So if we let our width be x, then our length would be 31 minus the x, because the two together has to add up to 31. So there's your two variables. Now, the length of a rectangle, which we know the length now is 31 minus x, is equal to, the length of the rectangle is equal to 1 more than 4 times the width. Okay, 4 times the width, 1 more than that. Let's say it again. The length of the rectangle is 1 more plus 1 than 4 times the width, which we know is x. Now it's a very simple, this one actually is going to be a whole lot simpler to solve than the last one. Let's move our minus x by adding x to this side. Let's move plus 1 by doing minus 1 to this side. Gives us 30 is equal to 5x. Divide by 5 tells you that x would have to be 6. So therefore our width, x, is 6. Our length, 31 minus x, which is 31 minus 6, is 25. And you can check that. 6 and 25 would be the 2. If you find the parameter 6, 25, 6, 25, that would give you 62. This one is one more than 4 times this one, so everything does check out. Number 6, we have a trapezoid. So let's draw the trapezoid. It says the length of one base of a trapezoid is 19 less than 5 times the length of the other base. The length of one base is 19 less than 5 times the length of the other base. So that's going to be your two unknowns. The trapezoid has a height of 18, so we can label that. They just flat out tell you the height is 18. And an area of 477. Now this is a little tricky. The way that you find the area of a trapezoid, area is equal to 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. We'll call them A and B, which is actually the two unknowns that we have. They give you the height, 18. They also give you the area, 477. So what we've got to do here, plug in 477 for the area. We have the 1/2 built into the formula. We know the height is 18, but we have no idea what A or B is equal to. But look what we can do here. We can clean this up a lot. I know that half of 18 is 9, so you now have 477 equals 9 times A plus B. Now, whatever you do, please do not distribute that, because then you have 9A plus 9B, which you can't do anything with. But what I can do, since 9 is being multiplied by both of those, go ahead and move it over here by dividing. And that tells me 477, let's say that'll go 53 times. So that tells me that A plus B is equal to 53, which now looks a lot like what that last problem did. So we know that our two bases, our base A and base B, we know that the sum of those bases, A plus B, is 53. Now let's go back and read the problem again. The length of one base is 19 less than 5 times the length of the other base. So let's do base A, length of A, and length of B. Since you know the two add together to give you 53, I'm going to let one of them be x and the other one be 53 minus x. So there's my two variables now. I've used all that information, and what turned out to be the simplest was the area one. I used the area to actually define the two bases. Now let's see. The length of one base is 19 less than 5 times the other base. So let's do, and it doesn't matter which one you let be one base and the other base. So we'll do the length of one base, 53 minus x, is, let's read it again, the length of one base, it doesn't matter which one you plug in there, is, which means equals, 19 less, so that's going to be minus 19 less than 5 times the length of the other base. 19 less than 5 times the length of the other base. So there's your equation. The length of one base is 19 less than 5 times the other base. So now let's solve the equation. Let's move our minus x by adding x to both sides. So I add x. Let's add our 19 over here. So I now have 72 is equal to 6x. When you divide by 6, you get x is 12. Now go back and look and see what x stood for. X was the length of this base, so it's 12. The other base was 53 minus x, which is 53 minus 12, which is 41. So there's your two bases, it's 41 and 12. Find the length of the longer base, so that would be 41 there. Okay, number 7. Halfway done. The measure of one angle is 6 more than half the measure of the other angle. The angles are complementary. Now we're going back and we're doing some geometry here. If the angles are complementary, okay, we're going to let angle, we'll call them angle 1 and 2. We're defining our variables here. Angle 1, we'll let be our x. If they're complementary, that means they add up to 90. So the two angles would be x and 90 minus x because they add up to 90. The measure of one angle, and what actually worked pretty good on that other one, to start out with the ugliest, whenever they say the measure of one angle is, it didn't say the measure of angle 1, but the angle of one of the, or the measure of one of the angles is equal to, and again, it doesn't matter which one you plug in for that. The measure of one of the angles is 6 more than half the other. So 6 more than half of the other. So 6 more than 1/2 x. Solve. Let's move our x's all to the same side. Minus x turns into plus x. Plus 6 turns into minus 6. Gives me 84 is equal to, this is 1 over 1. Common denominator will be 2, so multiply top and bottom by 2. Gives you 1 over 2 plus 2 over 2, which will be 3 over 2. To get rid of a 3/2, let's multiply the other side by the reciprocal, 2/3. Cross cancel, different color. 3 into 3, 3 into 84. Gives you a 1 and a 28. Multiply the tops, gives you a 56 over 1, which is just 56. So x is 56. So let's go back up here. So your x is 56. That's your first angle. 90 minus 56 would be 34, would be your other angle. So find the measures of both angles. So 56 degrees and 34 degrees are the two angles. Kelly, Laura, and Tia sold boxes of cookies for a fundraiser. Kelly sold 15 boxes less than Laura. Tia sold twice as many boxes as Kelly. If they sold 83 cookies total, how many boxes did each girl sell? So we have Kelly, Laura, and Tia. Kelly, Laura, and Tia. And we're going to let their names equal how many boxes they sold. Now, we got to be careful because here's what we can't do. We can't use this anymore. They sold 83 boxes in total. Because if we let this be x, this can't be 83 minus x because then how many did Tia sell? So we really don't want to use x and y and all that. We don't want to do a system. So let's somehow try to use this other information to figure out how many boxes to define our variables. Kelly sold 15 boxes less than Laura. Okay, it really doesn't matter here. If you want to let Laura be x, Kelly sold 15 less than that, so Kelly would be x take away 15. So they sold the same amount minus 15. Laura's x, and then Kelly would be minus 15 from that. Tia sold twice as many boxes as Kelly. So here's Kelly's total. So Tia's would be double that, 2 times whatever Kelly sold. And you can distribute there if you would like to. So there's the definition of our variables. Now they sold 83 in total. So that means you can take Kelly's amount, you can take Laura's amount, you can take Tia's amount, which would be, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that. If you add them all together, you're going to get that they sold in total 83 boxes. That's it. Combine your like terms. We have x, x, and 2x, which is 4x. A negative 15 and a negative 30 gives you a negative 45, and that's equal to 83. Move your minus 45 by adding 45, and it gives you 4x is equal to 128. Dividing by 4 gives you x is 32. If x is 32, now let's plug it in. Laura sold 32. Kelly sold 32 minus 15, which would be 17. And Tia sold double the 32 minus 15, so 2 times 17, which would be 34. So how many, but that's how many boxes that each girl sold. And you can add that, 34, 32, be 66, and 17 gives you the 83 total that they did sell. Number 9, the measures of the vertex angle of an isosceles triangle. Okay, let's draw us an isosceles triangle, see how much we remember from geometry. In an isosceles triangle, you have 2 congruent sides, which means you have 2 congruent angles. And this up here is what we call the vertex angle. It's the other one. The measure of the vertex angle of an isosceles triangle is 6 less than 4 times the measure of a base angle. So if this base angle is x, that means the other base angle would also be x. The 2 base angles in isosceles is the same. That means the vertex angle would be 6 less than 4 times the base angle. So 4 times x and then minus 6, 6 less than that. Also a reminder from geometry, the 3 angles in a triangle add up to 180. So there's your equation. 4x minus 6, x, and x are your 3 angles. When you add them together, you're going to get 180. Combine like terms, that'd be 6x minus 6 is 180. To move minus 6, we're going to add 6. That'd be 6x is 186. Divide by 6 and you get x is 31. So now let's plug all that in. So that means that this x would be 31 degrees. That means that this x would be 31 degrees. And this 4 times x would be 124. Minus 6 is 118 degrees. So there is the measure of your 3 angles. They asked for what? Find the measure of the vertex angle. So that would be the 118. The next one, number 10. The sum of 4 consecutive integers. Okay. First off, let's talk about what do consecutive integers. What does that even mean? 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are consecutive integers. 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are consecutive integers. Consecutive means one right after the other. Integers, we've already discussed this year. Integers are your positive or negative whole numbers. So we have 4 numbers, 4 consecutive integers. Here's how we're going to define it. Our first integer, we're going to let be x. The one that comes right after it would be that same number plus one more. The number that comes right after that would be that same number that you started with plus 2 more. The next one would be that same number that you started with plus 3 more. So we're pretty much taking this one, adding 1 more, be x plus 2. Take this one, adding 1 more, that'd be x plus 3. So there's our 4 consecutive integers. And now it's pretty easy from here. The sum is 222. So if I add these 4 integers together, I'm going to get 222. Now I'm going to underline, there's my 4 integers. I'm going to underline those so that at the end, I didn't label it, but you can say let the first one be x, let the second one be x plus 1, let the third one be x plus 2. You can label it if you want to, but I'm going to do it like this. So combine like terms, you have x, 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 you got 4 x's. Combine your plus 1, plus 2, and plus 3, and you get plus 6. And that's going to equal 222. Move your plus 6 by subtracting. Gives you 4x is equal to 216. Divide by 4, it gives you x is equal to 54. So my 4 integers, the first one was equal to x. It is 54. My second one is x plus 1 more, which would be 55. My third one was x, again, which is 54, plus 2 more, which is 56. And then I have 54 plus 3, which is 57. There's my 4 integers. Number 11. The sum of 3 consecutive odd integers, like 3, 5, and 7. Erase that. 3, 5, and 7. Those would be consecutive odds, or 7, 9, and 11. Those are consecutive odds. So you got to be careful. Your 3 numbers now would be x, would be your first one. To get my next odd number, I don't add 1, I add 2 to my first number. And then to find my next number, I would take the first one and I would add 4 to it. So there's my 3 consecutive odd numbers. Now let me go ahead and warn you, if you ever have a consecutive even problem, you set it up the same way, because even numbers are also spaced out 2 more and 2 more, okay? So there's my 3 consecutive odd numbers. The sum is 93. So there's my 3 numbers. When I add them together, I should get 93. So combine your x's, you have 3x. Combine your 2 and 4, gives you plus 6 is equal to 93. We're going to move plus 6 by subtracting 6, and that gives me 3x is 87. Divide by 3 gives me x is 29. So my first number is 29. 29 plus 2 will give me my second, which is 31. 29 plus 4 will give you 33, which is the third one. You might say, well, how did the problem know that they're odd? Because of what the sum was. If the problem asks for 3 consecutive even integers, then the sum would not be an odd number, because there's no way that you can actually add 3 even numbers to get an odd number. So the problem kind of had built into it the difference between odd and even by giving you a sum of 93. So that's the reason that you don't have to do anything with even versus odd. And now we do have the sum of 3 consecutive evens. So we're going to do the same thing. First number is x, second number is x plus 2, the last number is going to be x plus 4. So there's your 3 consecutive even numbers. Let me clean that up. We know that their sum it says, well, find three consecutive even numbers such that the sum of the smallest and twice the median integer. And if you don't remember what median is, median simply means middle. Okay? The median integer is 20 more than the largest integer. So the sum of the smallest, which is this one, and twice the median, or twice the middle, the sum of the smallest and twice the middle is 20 more than the largest. So the largest number plus 20 more. We don't really need parentheses around this. They're not going to be necessary because you're not multiplying by it. You're not raising it to a power. However, we did need parentheses here because we're multiplying that by 2. So let's distribute. So now you have x plus 2x plus 4 equals, you can combine some like terms over here if you'd like to, or you can wait, either one. So distributive property first, combine like terms second. You have 3x plus 4 on the left side. You have x plus 24 on the right side. Move your x over by subtracting. You now have 2x. Move your 4 over by subtracting. It's equal to 20. So x would have to be 10. So your three numbers would be x is 10, x plus 2 is 12, x plus 4 is 14. And you can check that. Find three consecutive even integers, they are even, such that the sum of the smallest and twice the median, so the smallest plus twice the median would be 24. That sum would be 34. And we want that sum to equal 20 more than the largest. 20 more than 14 is also 34, so it does check out.